and we're continuing to think about our new series, Made for Glory, or Created for Glory. So in our first introductory sermon last week, and this is the second part. And so what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks is picking apart really Romans 11:36, using that as headings, and we'll look at particular passages to do with it, to sort of expand and expound Romans 11:36. But this really is a key and a crucial verse. It makes a profound statement that can have a drastic effect on our lives. Okay, and as we come to God's word, either we can let God's word wash over us and not really do anything about it, or we can do what God wants us to take a hold of the truth of His word and bring our lives into line with it. Okay, and that's how we live effective lives. Effective lives aren't lives that perhaps either make loads of money or have a massive impact on the world or whatever. An effective life is a life that is consistent with all that God has revealed about how we should live. That's what an effective life is. A life that, no matter how effective it might be in the eyes of the world, is a life upon which God is pleased. As He looks at every facet of our lives, He wants to be pleased with all of it. And Romans 11:36 is a passage of scripture that can help us with that, to live our lives consistently with the way that God has revealed we should live. If I was to, I mentioned to you last week about something I mentioned, the Westminster Shorter and Greater Catechism. Do you remember that? Anyone remember that? Vaguely? So I think it would be really good for us to learn that off by heart, not the whole catechism, but at least the first statement. Okay, so I'm going to remind you of the question. The question is this: what is the chief end of man? Okay, there can't really be a more important question for us to be clear on the answer than that in life. What is the chief end of man? So we want to be crystal clear on this. The chief end of man, can anyone remember? The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Okay? That is why you exist. You exist to glorify God and enjoy Him now and forever. Okay? Now we live our lives, all of us, me and you, as if there are other purposes in our lives. And there kind of is, isn't there? There's all sorts of things that we live for. But what that catechism tells us, that question and answer tells us, is that all of those other things ultimately feed into that one thing. Or that's what they're meant to do. And if there are things that don't, so we live for our children, don't we? Those of us that have children to a degree. But either that can be a means, an end in itself, or it can be a means to an end. And it should be a means to an end. Okay? And the end can be this: I devote my life to my children, or whatever else it might be, my career, or whatever. Whatever the things are that you devote your life to. I devote my life to this because of the good things that it gives to me. Because it makes me happy. Often that's, and so that actually our pursuits terminate on me. And just think about that for a moment. Because all of us fall into that trap, and that's what it is. All of us do things because the end result is that it makes me and my life better. Okay? And that is, we could call it this: worldliness. And sometimes Christians use God to fulfill their own worldliness. In other words, they follow God because He makes my life better. That's often the reason that people follow God. But that verse tells us that what we looked at is the chief end of man is to glorify God. In other words, our lives don't terminate on ourselves, but they, through us to God. Our lives and everything that we do should terminate on God for His glory. Just to illustrate the point, at Christmas most of us will give gifts. And when you give a gift, okay, you give the gift, and why do you give the gift? Because hopefully, because you love the person. And you're not looking for praise necessarily, but there's something about the giving of a gift which is incomplete until thanks has been returned. Isn't it? If you give someone a gift, you're not doing it for the thanks necessarily, hopefully not. But when you give it, if you give someone a gift, they just take it and walk off. It's like, oh, is that it? Is there no comeback whatsoever? And when someone does that, it's like something's not being completed, isn't it? Something needs to come to completion. And in that situation, what we give there terminates on us. Okay, so that if you think of it in terms of glory, giving thanks is to glorify, to thank. Because it's like saying, thank you, it's because of you that I'm experiencing this joy, because of you. And so to give thanks is to glorify. So when I give someone a gift and they come back and give thanks to me, they glorify me, and that sort of completes the giving of the gift, or it feels like it does, then the glory is terminated on me. Okay? But what we're saying here is actually that's not complete either. Just as we feel the giving of the gift is incomplete when they don't say thank you, when they do say thank you, if it stops there, we go away feeling much better because, we gave them a gift, they really appreciated it. Actually, it's like God's there feeling, and we're like the person that just took the gift and walked off. There's more to be done because it doesn't stop at us. All things are for His glory. Let's just read the verse. So all things, that means every gift that we give. Ultimately, is for His glory. The air that we breathe, ultimately is for His glory. Let's just have a look at it. In Romans 11:36, for from Him, and through Him, and for Him are all things. To Him be the glory forever. For from Him, for Him, through Him, and for Him are all things. Everything. It's all ultimately for Him. And if we, like I say, most of the time we kind of forget that we're human and we think of things for us or for other people. And that's like that giving of the gift where someone doesn't quite return it. And so God is, so we constantly owe God. Constantly. We owe Him glory. That's what we owe Him. We don't give Him the glory that He deserves. We don't believe it, give Him. Even when we try and remember, we still fall short. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's what it says. You see, we all fall short. None of us give God the glory that He's due. And all that means, this isn't to condemn any of us. This is just the way that we are because we're fallen people. But what it means is it tells us immediately that, hey, in the race of life, I'm finishing before, in everything that I do, it's like I stop often short of the finish line. In all the things that I do. And so, and what we want to do is learn in all the different areas of our life to not stop short of the finish line, but to complete the things that God has given us to do. And when we complete those things, do you know what we do? We glorify God. And again in John chapter 14, that's what Jesus says when He's praying to the Father. He says, I have brought glory to you on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. Now let's just go back to the illustration that I used a moment ago, the giving of a gift. What that means is if Jesus gave a gift, sometimes He healed the lepers, didn't He? 11 lepers, wasn't it? Only one came back and thanked Him. Okay, so it's like, one sort of completed that giving of a gift, but the others didn't. But if you take that one that came back and thanked the Lord Jesus, what do you think Jesus did at some point there? At some point, I can tell you what he'd have done. He'd have thanked his Father. That's what he'd have done. Because it terminates on God. He would have acknowledged the Father and the Spirit in some way, whether it's verbally or not, I don't know. But we know that he would have, because it would have been to glorify God. And Jesus is God. When the leper came and returned and said thank you, he wasn't doing that so much to glorify God, because he probably didn't know that Jesus was God incarnate, as it were. So we're to glorify God in all things. And that means, for example, when I give someone a gift and they come back to me and say, thank you, Julian, that brings me a certain amount of joy, and I want to say thank you to God. So, Lord, thank you for giving me that I may give to others and have that joy. It all comes back ultimately to God. So that's just to illustrate one way in which we might glorify God and complete the work that he has given us to do. So, we're thinking about how can we better glorify God. When we glorify God, the more we glorify him, something will happen to us and to our lives. We will experience more and more and more joy and peace. We will. Nothing will rob us of the joy that we have in Christ if we're completing the work that he's given us to do. We may have dire circumstances and situations, and yet still, whether it's being faithful to God and thanking him for his strength and his comfort and fully acknowledging all that he's provided for us and thanking him for that in faith and experiencing the joy of the comfort or whatever it might be. Even in dire situations, we will know something of God's glory and joy. So we've been made not just to glorify God, but to enjoy him forever. Now obviously, we're not going to do that perfectly, none of us, but we can do better than what we are. We can experience more of his joy. So let's just have a think about this verse again. Verse 36 then. For from him and through him and for him are all things, to him be the glory forever. For from him, we're going to spend just a few moments thinking about this. This is really important, okay, because it tells us that everything is from God, okay? In other words, everything, in the beginning was God, and there was nothing else. There was no other God before him, just as there's no real God after him, there are false gods. But in the beginning was God. Okay? He hadn't created anything, it was just God. And so that means that when God creates, what is he working with? Himself. Out of, from him. Remember we looked at what those words mean. From, out of. The Greek word is ex, where we get the word exit. Out of God. Okay? Now here's where this is really important. At least at an intellectual level, and it is important. Because that is the complete opposite to what, not science teaches us, but what many scientists would claim. And probably the most revered of all cosmologists, scientists that study the stars and everything else, alive today is Stephen Hawking, probably. And when he makes a pronouncement on science, a lot of people think, well, that's it then. He said it, that is it. It's almost as if he is the ultimate authority. I think he gets a certain sort of kudos because he's got that thing when he speaks, it kind of sounds a bit strange and a bit more profound than others speak. But when he speaks with authority. Now here's the problem with Stephen Hawking. He is a great cosmologist. And if you want to know about cosmology, he's probably at least one of the ultimate authorities. Okay? But what he's no good at, in fact, I would even say he is pretty rubbish. He is rubbish at philosophy. And the problem is he does his cosmology, and then he thinks about it, and he makes philosophical statements. And when he does that, he steps outside of his field of expertise and makes these statements. And the general public, people out there, they don't realise that now he's speaking on a subject that he doesn't really know anything about. He's got no education in philosophy at all. But they think that when he makes these philosophical statements, they have just as much authority as when he makes cosmological statements. Does that make sense? This is what he does. I don't think he even knows he's doing it, but he does that. It would be a bit like me, having studied a bit of theology to some degree, as a theologian, making some announcements, some profound announcements about biology. And Chris is sitting there thinking, what does he know? You know what I mean? That's what Stephen Hawking says. But people don't make that distinction. Okay? Now this is what Stephen Hawking says. He wrote a book recently called The Brief History of Time. Well, he's since written his latest book with another guy, I can't remember the other guy's name, but it's a very different book to The Brief History of Time, and basically he's almost done a U-turn on what he was saying just a few years ago. But Jade, can you play the Hawkins clip? This is what Stephen Hawking says about our existence.
Because there are laws, such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing. Spontaneous creation is the reason there is something rather than nothing. It is why the universe exists, why we exist. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper and set the universe going.
Made an announcement that, and that's from his book, that's a quote from his book as well, that there's no need to invoke God. That as long as there are, or because there are laws such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing. That's what he says. It will create itself out of nothing. Now, the thing is, that is not a cosmological statement. That is not cosmology. That's a philosophical statement, and it's utter nonsense. And you know what, you don't have to, so I mean, he's been criticised left, right and centre by just about every philosopher, even whether atheist or theist. Now here's the problem, okay? A lot of people will hear him say that and think, wow, the universe created itself out of nothing. He's proved it, that there is no God. That's what he said. No need for God. It can all happen all on its own. Just very briefly though, we're going to, what's the problem with that statement? Sorry? Yeah? If there's nothing, there's no gravity. Okay? Now, there might be, you can talk about, philosophically, you can talk about a law of gravity when there's absolutely nothing, because a law of gravity is a kind of a concept, or a description of what would happen in a situation where you've got something. Okay? A law, a description of something can't actually do anything. It's like saying 2 + 2 = 4, but that's just a statement, it doesn't actually do anything. If I've got 2 carrots there and 2 carrots there, then I can get 4 carrots, but if there's nothing, conceptually 2 + 2 = 4 still, but it doesn't mean or achieve or do anything. Okay? And that's the first thing, that's the first problem. If there's gravity, there must be, that gravity can only work where you've got something in the first place. If there is nothing, there is no gravity. Okay, that's the first problem. The second problem is what? He said the universe will create. Just think of that. The universe will create itself out of nothing. The problem with that is this. It presupposes the universe in the first place to create itself. Isn't it? Think about it. The universe will create itself. Therefore, it must, exist. If I create something, I must exist to create the something I'm creating. Okay? If the universe creates itself, it must be there to create. The problem is, if it's there and it creates itself, then the fact that it's just been created, it cannot have been created by itself. That's nonsense. It really is nonsense, and he's been torn apart all over the place. Loads of cosmologists would say, oh yeah, Stephen Hawking is brilliant, because they don't know philosophy either. But for philosophers, they just see the problem with what he's saying in the first place. And as one philosopher said, the problem is people like Stephen Hawking, he starts his book by saying philosophy is dead, and then spends the first third of the book philosophising, without even realising that's what he's doing. He just assumes it's philosophy, doesn't know it's philosophy, and then says, yeah, philosophy is dead. Absolute nonsense. But, okay, now we're going to play another clip now. This one is by a man called Peter Atkins. And Peter Atkins, or he is to chemistry what Hawkins is to cosmology. Have a listen to what Peter Atkins.
I think there are two sorts of religious scientist. One is the creationist, someone who believes that everything was created and what we're seeing is just what the creator left around. And I regard that simply as intellectual excrement of the first order, and I don't think we need to worry about it any further. The second sort, the one that we do have to take seriously, are the believing scientists, the people who are really making an intellectual effort to coordinate their system of beliefs with the tide of scientific discoveries, which are slowly pushing them further and further back into metaphor. I think the acid test of the battle that is going on between science and religion would be science's ability to show that the entire world could tumble out of nothing. It's already got back to within a photon's throw of the origin of the universe, as we've gone back into the Big Bang, and almost to the point of talking about what happened before the Big Bang. And I see no reason why we should not be able to go beyond the Big Bang and talk about its inception, how the universe emerged from absolutely nothing, not just empty space, but from nothing, and how it did so without intervention. Now, if science can do that, then I think that the religious must concede defeat.
Well, however you cut it, whether you believe in a six-day creation 6,000 years ago, or Big Bang 13.5 billion years ago, whatever you believe about that, the point is this: before there was creation, there was no time or space or matter. So you can't really talk about God being, we can talk in conventions about God being before creation, but in reality, he didn't exist before creation because there was no time, at least not as we know it, until creation. So there was God, and he created time, space and matter. He existed eternally, outside of time somehow, whatever that means, we don't quite know. But in this other debate, this evolutionist guy, he says that there doesn't have to be a God before there was time, space and matter. And the guy that he's speaking to says, yeah, but whatever there was before there was anything, any creation, whatever there was, has to have been timeless because time hadn't been created. It must be spaceless because there was no space. It must be incredibly powerful to create anything, and it must be personal. And it's got to be personal because if it's inanimate, then if it exists in eternity and it's completely inanimate, it will remain inanimate. There's nothing to cause anything. So it must be personal. And this guy says, well, it must be a computer. Who he's debating. He says, well, maybe it's a computer. And he says, no, it can't be. This other guy says, no, it can't be a computer because computers are created. He says, oh, no, not this one. This is an uncreated computer. And the guy says, well, the thing is, computers still have to function. That takes time. Oh, no, he says, not this computer. This computer doesn't need to function. This is an amazing computer. And he's basically, he strips a computer of all of its attributes. And the guy that he's speaking to then says to him, well, really, all you're doing is what you're calling a computer is God. Timeless, spaceless, all-powerful, and it brilliantly demonstrates how if, whatever there was before creation it has to have been timeless, spaceless, and incredibly powerful, and personal. That makes a lot of sense, and that's the person that we call God. And so we have either, so our alternatives are these: either everything from absolutely nothing, or God created. Remember, could you see our friends out, please? Thank you. Okay, so now, why is that important? Let me tell you why that's important. Here's one reason, okay? Because often when people backslide, they drift away from God, and then they start to wonder, is it all real? Is there a God? And they start to, what they do, people often, they stop thinking about those things that are important. And Alan, could you go and have the next thing, please? Sorry. Okay. We'll carry on. Because at the moment, you may not be thinking about backsliding, but there will be a time when perhaps you do. There'll be a time when you wonder, is it all true? And we need to be clear that actually the alternative is everything came from nothing, and that is absolute nonsense. You cannot get anything out of nothing, okay? The second thing that this verse tells us is that it says, for from him, or out of him, and through him, or, more accurately, by him are all things. And here's why that is important for us. Because not only has everything come from God and not out of absolutely nothing, but God, everything that exists intentionally. Okay, so God is, in other words, some people say this, well, there was a God and he sort of got everything started, but everything's just evolved since then, mindlessly, it's all just happened and everything else. But this says, no, God, not only does it come out of God or from him, but it is by him. And that word by, it means he's done it intentionally. Okay? And what that means for each of us is this: none of us are accidents. None of us are accidents. God created each one of us intentionally. He made you, every one of you. In Matthew chapter 10 and verse 31, I think Colin alluded to it earlier. Matthew chapter 10, verse 31. Listen to what it says. And even the very hairs of your head, this is Jesus speaking, are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Now, what Jesus is saying is, if you take everyone that exists on the earth, God knows every single one. He knows how many hairs there are on each of our heads. Now, I know that with Ron, that's not difficult. But with others, it's difficult to quantify. Jesus knows the number of hairs on everyone's head. That's what it says there. And, yeah. And so, in other words, he knows intimately every single person, believer and unbeliever. All things are created by him. That's the whole universe serves a purpose. It's all created by him intentionally. There are no accidents. Everything that happens in life, the Lord, I'm not saying that everything that happens for a reason, but the Lord allows it to happen for a reason. Okay, there's a difference. So things happen that, would be much better if they didn't happen. But the Lord allows them to happen because he has got purpose in it. And often, when things are working out, we wonder what's going on, don't we? Why is it? If God is God and he's created everything and he knows me intimately, he knows everyone intimately, why are things the way that they are? That's a question that we often ask. Well, the first thing that we have to know in that situation is God does know us. And he knows us intimately. There are no accidents. He allows things to happen for a purpose. Now, how do I know that he allows things to happen for a purpose? Well, because this verse tells us, Romans 11:36. tells us why. Now, the reason is this. All things are from him, by him, or through him, and for him, or to him. In other words, everything that we experience in life has a purpose that is ultimately for God. Why did God allow these circumstances? Well, whatever reason it is, we know it terminates on God himself. And see, often when we get, we treat both our hardships in life and our pleasures in life, the good things, whatever we're experiencing, like I was saying at the beginning, for us they terminate on me. And what that means is when I'm enjoying things and there's good things in life, I fall short and I don't bring it back to God and see why God's given me those good things. And so the good things are all about me. And that's why I want good things for me and my life. But we interpret the bad things in the same way. The bad stuff's all about me. Why is this happening to me? Rather than in both circumstances, realising that actually this isn't about me. This is about God. The illustration that I used last week, I really love the feeling of speed on my motorbike. When you pull that throttle back, and my bike's not even that powerful, but it feels it. When you pull the throttle back and you feel the acceleration, it just gets your blood pumping. It's awesome. I love it. Okay, and why? And what's that about? Well, as I said last week, God has created us with a desire for power, to experience power, because it is a kind of an echo of God himself. It's a desire for God. And so every time I think, I want to feel a bit of speed, that is God telling me, Julian, I made you for myself. You can have a bit of a thrill on your bike and that would be nice and that'll pass, but there's something much greater. And when we make it all about the thing, and we stop looking to the giver of the things, when we think it's all about me experiencing this, rather than looking to God and saying, you must be amazing. And beginning to understand that all of our life's experiences are ultimately all about him. When we stop doing that in good times and in hard times, we fall short of the glory of God. It's all about him. So that, we'll close with this, the story of Job. It's a story of woe, isn't it? Yeah? It's not just a story of woe though, is it? It really isn't actually. The way it finishes is pretty amazing. But in both circumstances, God is exactly the same. God doesn't change. It's not that God is waxing and waning and he's not, he's lost control over Satan and he's in full control the whole time. And always, why is God doing this? He's working for his own glory. He allows Job to experience all the negative things that he experiences. Why? For his own glory. And then he blesses Job. Why? For his own glory. It's all for him. It's not about Job. It's not about Satan. It's about God. And our lives are not about, they're not about Satan. They're not about other people. They're not about me. It's all about God. And incidentally, when we read the story of Job, we don't read it, do we, and think, what kind of a God is this? We don't do it. When we read the story of Job, we're thinking, wow, isn't Job amazing, not dishonouring God? That's what we think. And we don't think that God, we think if only Job knew and understood. And then if you know the story of Job, God never tells him why he suffered. Did you know that? And so Job gets to the end of his life, he doesn't know. And if we're wise, we think, wow, Job was faithful all the way through, and he died not knowing why. One day he's going to find out just how he glorified God. And we look at Job and we admire him, don't we? And we think how blessed he was at the end. And the thing is this, our lives should be the same. So that when we're going through those experiences, We're not thinking, we're thinking of ourselves and God the same as we would think of him when we read the story of Job. And when we're experiencing the good things, again, we be like Job. We acknowledge that he is God. He's given them and he can take them away and nothing's gone wrong because God's still working for his glory. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing.